Allison here for this edition of Upbeat. We have joining us Arthur Secunda, who is an artist that just joined us here in Boulder County. So welcome, Arthur.
Thank you, Allison. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit, how did you get started as an artist?
Well, it's a long story and a twisting and turning history, but I've been in the art world, so to speak, since I was about 10 years old. I first went to art classes at the Brooklyn Museum in New York and later at the Detroit Art Institute. And then for the advanced education, studied in Europe and New York.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like you've lived a lot of different places. So where are some of your favorite places that you've lived?
Well, it's kind of like asking for my favorite children. There is no favorite place, but I love France for certain things and certain parts of France for certain things. I love the energy of New York. I love the layback of Los Angeles. And I spent quite a bit of time in Sweden, so I have a great love of Nordic life also. Mm-hmm. And of course all of this has influenced my art and made me who I am.
Yeah. Well, that was actually my next question. So where do you get the inspiration for your art?
A lot of it has to do with where I live, and my original training in France was as a landscape artist. And so the land around where I live influences my art a great deal. And I lived in Arizona for a long time, painted the desert, and or the feeling of the desert, not so much the sand, but the heat and the rising temperatures and that kind of thing. I like to work from my imagination, so I'm inspired by you, the camera, my surroundings.
So I noticed that you use different kinds of mediums in your artwork. You use different kinds of paint or fabric in some cases.
Yes, I had pretty extensive training in Mexico for sculpture and in New York for drawing and France for painting. And eventually, of course, I came to my own style. And I have something here which is a good example of experiments in art. This is a silkscreen print called Summer Rain. Of course, it's a fantasy, but it's done on rag paper and has a certain kind of matte look to it. And then I developed a technique of printing with wax under the paint. And so this piece, called Long Distance Island, has a glow and changes as the position of the art moves or the viewer moves. So it gives it another kind of energy or life quality. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So what are you working on now? I know you recently moved to Colorado. What are some things that you're planning on working on while you're here?
Well, it's been very difficult to absorb the Colorado culture. It's very, very different here from Arizona and California, where I previously lived. So I'm working on trying to integrate the mountains and the snow and other kind of thinking that goes on here than California or Arizona. It's very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what is your latest work that you've been doing?
Mountains, the snow-capped mountains is something that is capturing my attention now. Mm-hmm. That it's warm down below and cold up above.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned to me earlier that you've taught at University of California, actually.
That's right.
So tell us more about that.
Well, I taught for a while at UCLA and in Pasadena, which is near LA, in the 60s, and I was the editor of Art Forum magazine at that time. And then I had to make some important decisions about my future and decided to dump it all and become a full-time artist. And therein lies the challenge, making a living, supporting a family, and all that. Mm-hmm. But I'm 83 years old now, and so far so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone, maybe in my generation or anyone that's interested in getting into art?
Study, draw, study, draw, study, draw.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, now art schools are very different from when I went, and since there was no computerized graphics at the time, the whole conceptual idea of graphic design has changed a lot. Some for the good and some for the worse. But I think it's important to draw, whether you're a graphic designer online or not, because it increases your ability to observe and really look at things. And I remember when I was in life drawing class many years ago, how my teacher would make me stare at a knee or an elbow or an earlobe until I got it right.
Wow.
And there's a kind of Zen discipline about being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. So what have you seen over the last few decades? How has your artwork changed because of new technology?
Oh, it's changed a lot because of technology. I've done a lot of graphics in the sense of silkscreens, etchings, lithographs, and all of that has become very, very fast and much easier to come up with a fast, good aesthetic result.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know you showed me a piece earlier where it's even showing the social network and how everything is moving so quickly.
Right, right. I do believe that an artist has to be involved in, speaking of social network, in society in some way, in reflecting the time and the place where one lives. I think that's really important.
So, Arthur, where can people find your artwork?
Well, my work is collected by about 150 museums throughout the world, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York, Los Angeles County Museum, not Denver yet, but I'm working on it, and literally dozens of museums. That's where one can find my work.
And I'm sure you have a website as well where they can look.
Yes, www.arthursecunda.com.
Well, we're really happy that you've joined us here in the Boulder County community. It's just such an honor to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to be here.